I hooked up with my ex at my dad's funeral. I've got questions that I hope will be answered. I went home with a guy and his mattress was infested with cockroaches.
Can we skip this story?
Welcome back to Delve Deck Stories. Today we have some crazy hookup stories. Our first story comes from Naomi, and it's "What's your not my proudest moment" story from the venting deck. I hooked up with my ex at my dad's funeral. I've got questions that I hope will be answered.
I hope so.
I realize this is in poor taste, but this ex had such a hold on me that I couldn't resist. I am not proud of my behavior, but it was a particularly weak moment for me. I dated Ian the summer after I finished college. I'd moved home to save up some money and work for my dad. Ian worked at my dad's construction firm, so that's how we met. He was the kind of hot you really only see in a magazine or a movie. Thick, dark, wavy hair, big green eyes, flawless skin, washboard abs, the works. He looked like he was photoshopped, but he was real. Okay. We started hanging out because we were both going to the same kinds of rock shows and music festivals. The chemistry was ridiculous, and we were hooking up any chance we got. He was as magical in bed as he was good looking. That's great because I feel like that doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
I feel like hot people suck in bed a lot of the time. I know this sounds great and all, but the physical connection was really the only plus side to dating him. We didn't have much in common beyond chemistry and our more trivial shared interests. There just wasn't any deep emotional connection, and I couldn't see spending my life with him. I ended up getting a job I really wanted in New York and moved away. I was thankful to get the job and move because not only was it the career opportunity I wanted, but I knew in my heart that physical distance was the only thing that was going to pry me out of this relationship that was going nowhere. I tried breaking up with him twice before moving, only to end up right back in bed with him a few days later. The guy was heroin, and I was hooked. Have you ever been in a relationship like that?
Yeah, I have.
It's it makes you feel insane.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm never coming back. And then they call you and you're like, hi.
All right.
Things didn't end with Ian on bad terms, so we've talked to each other a bit here and there over the years, but it was little more than, have you heard this band yet? Or Happy New Year, hope you're doing well. We both moved on with our lives and had long-term relationships with other people. We've run into each other a few times when I've been home, but each time one or both of us was in a relationship, so our encounters stayed strictly platonic each time. I had also promised myself I would not fall back under his spell because I knew things would go nowhere with him. Proud of you?
Yeah.
For now. My dad died last year rather suddenly of a heart attack, and I went home for the funeral. A lot of people from my dad's company, including Ian, were at the funeral. Ian looked just as beautiful as he did when we were 22, and at this point, we were both single again. Wait till after the funeral. He greeted me to offer condolences and gave me a hug, which felt like a life raft in an endless ocean. I didn't want to let go. I was so heartbroken about my dad, and Ian's big warm hug was the only thing that had felt good all week. All my resolve to not hook up with him again was quickly evaporating. You're also in a vulnerable spot.
Yeah.
Man, this is a recipe for disaster.
Again, you're like emotional, you know him, you have experiences, your dad's gone, who's there to protect you?
He came to the reception at my parents' house and we chatted some more. Okay, at least it's like not the funeral home. We went from reminiscing about how great my dad was to reminiscing about the fling we'd had when we were younger, and I told him I wouldn't be against revisiting old times. Once you start talking about who you used to be, that's when it's all over.
You're like, oh, stop it.
He asked when, and I said, would it be terrible if we went up to my old room right now? I felt like such a monster, and for saying it at my dad's funeral of all places, but he just shook his head and said, not in the least. Okay.
Also, everyone copes their own way, you know, and they're
It's
like,
your
how
old childhood bedroom. You probably hooked up there before.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the memories are flooding back, you know, the nostalgia is overwhelming.
We snuck upstairs and we were all over each other the second I closed my old bedroom door, like no time had passed. I melted right into him and it was a relief to feel something other than sad. I just wanted to inhale him. We hooked up in my old twin bed with my entire family and their friends downstairs, trying to be quiet so no one would hear us because I know how horrified everyone would be if they knew what we were doing. Probably.
Yeah.
It was the most spontaneous and satisfying hookup I'd ever had, even though I felt like a bad daughter as soon as we were done. Ian said there was no use feeling guilty because whether I did something to feel better or not, it wouldn't bring my dad back, which I guess is true. That's such like I could just, it's like, don't even, nothing can happen now. Might as well just do it, babe.
I mean, honestly.
He would want you to be happy, he said.
Mm-hmm. There we go.
Sure, Ian. Great line. I am not sure he'd want me fooling around with one of his employees at his funeral, but you're right. It doesn't really matter, I replied. We put our clothes back on and rejoined everyone downstairs. I don't think anyone noticed we'd been gone. Ian was just as sexy and good in bed as he was when we were in our 20s, maybe even better. Hopefully.
Yeah.
God, hopefully you're not getting worse with time.
What a waste.
Yeah. I could feel myself falling right back under his intoxicating charm. Thankfully, I had my life back in New York and knew I was going home in a couple days, so I wasn't about to fall back into my old habits for long. I was still really sad about losing my father, but the hookup with Ian took the edge off. We hooked up a couple more times that week before I went back to New York. Yeah, girl.
I mean, you can't just do one and done.
No. It was a bittersweet trip down memory lane, but I was also so glad to be heading home at the end of the week because it's the only thing that was going to stop me from keeping it up. It was at your dad's funeral, but I get it.
Yeah, I totally understand. I don't hold it against you, girl.
No.
You do you, or
you do
him.
I think you did the right thing, even. Our next story is from Olivia, and it's, what's the worst date you ever went on, from our venting deck. I went home with a guy and his mattress was infested with cockroaches.
Can we skip this story? Because somehow I find that worse than like bed bugs.
After college, I lived on my own in this kind of rundown apartment complex. Most of the people who lived there had been there for 15 plus years, and hardly anyone was a young professional like myself. On top of that, my job was mostly remote, so I felt pretty lonely. I tried using dating apps in hopes of meeting someone, but I wasn't having a lot of success. Then, the woman in the apartment below me died. Lots of death, hookups.
Hopefully, we're not hooking up on the dead bed.
Oh, no, more and cockroaches. Horrible, I know, but that led to me meeting Jake. Jake was a very attractive man around my age who moved in a month later. He had this grungy hippie vibe that I've always been a sucker for. I first saw him when he was moving his things in and knew I had to meet him. My opportunity came a few weeks later when he was bringing groceries in. I went downstairs and smiled at him. He smiled back, so I introduced myself. I told him I was so excited there was another young person in the building and asked if he'd want to get a drink sometime. He agreed, and we set a date.
I really just want to know, is the bed that he has in the apartment the dead lady's bed?
And is she still in it?
Yes.
We went to a bar that was a few blocks away and had a great time. It had been a while, and I was ready to get some, so I didn't hesitate to ask if he wanted to keep the party going. He said, definitely, your place or mine. I was sick of being cooped up in my apartment, so I picked his. I feel like if I have the opportunity, unless I was like, wow, I haven't cleaned in a while, I feel like I would almost always pick my place.
Yeah.
Although I guess if you pick the other person's place, then you can leave. You don't have to kick someone out.
That's true. But again, it's not like they live in a separate place. They live above each other or below each other.
Yeah, but people still will just like hang around and you're like, please go home.
You're like, okay, I got some things to do.
When we got there, I noticed an odd smell, but I figured it was probably left over from the lady who died there.
It was her body.
I'm sure the apartment complex didn't clean as well as they should, so I ignored the smell and he poured me some wine. We talked a little more, but again, I wasn't there to chat, so I decided to make a move and kissed him. We started making out, and he was such a good kisser, I needed to get into his bedroom fast. I was like, wanna go to your bed? He said yes, scooped me up, and carried me into his room. It was so hot. I think just knowing where it's about to go, I'm like, oh dear.
The bed, you're just like crunch.
Oh. Then, right when we got into his room, the smell hit my nose. It smelled like a combination of cigarettes, urine, and death. Before I could gag, he tossed me onto his bed, which was just a mattress on the floor. It was like a cloud of this smell suddenly enveloped me. I wanted to puke. Oh my God, what is that smell? I managed to say. He was like, what do you mean?
At that point, I would have gotten up and left.
So now I'm like, great. He's used to it. Big red flag. It smells like death in here. What the hell is that? I asked. He again acted like he had no idea. I put my face to the bed and gave it a sniff. Your mattress. Smell this. You're saying you can't smell it?
Gross.
He started looking kind of embarrassed and said, I lost my sense of smell when I was a kid. I was in a car accident and got a pretty bad head injury. I haven't been able to smell anything since. Is it really that bad?
I'm surprised he didn't smell.
Well, he can't.
No, I'm saying, like, I'm surprised that he didn't smell because he can't smell himself.
Oh.
Like, he didn't have an odor, you know?
I felt bad for him, but was also like, yes, do you not wash your sheets? I wash my sheets, I swear, he insisted. But I didn't believe him, so I got off the bed, disgusted I'd been on it at all. Then I saw something crawling out from under the mattress. A cockroach. I screamed and was like, what the f***? There's a cockroach. Then to my horror, that cockroach was followed by 2 more. I started freaking out and screaming, kill them. I don't like to kill living creatures, he responded.
Did you need any more red flags?
I don't count cockroaches in the living creature category.
No,
I don't like killing living creatures either, but there are certain ones that they're not meant to. So now I'm like, okay, whatever, dude. He was hot, but not hot enough to put up with any of this. So I ran out of his room. He followed me saying, I'm surprised you're so scared of cockroaches. I've been dealing with them since I moved in. Do you not get any? I was like, no, this apartment complex sucks, but I've never had roaches. So I started yelling at him. They were coming out from under your mattress and your room smells like hell. What the f? Then he made this face like he was putting everything together. Oh, I think I know what's going on, he said. I was like, care to enlighten me? Because this is pretty fucking gross. He started explaining, when I first moved here, I didn't have a lot of furniture. I just broke up with my girlfriend and most of it was hers.
No, it's the deathbed.
And it's been pretty expensive. So when I saw that mattress in the alleyway, I figured it would be good enough until I had the money to buy a new one. You don't take a mattress from an alleyway.
Yeah.
That's so gross.
Yeah.
Air mattress is not that expensive either.
Yeah.
You can get a cheap one.
You get a little twin size one, you get a camping air mattress.
Yeah. Okay. I actually gagged when he said that. I have no idea what happened to that mattress, but there was no doubt it was full of roaches and had probably been pissed on at least once. For all I knew, it was the dead lady's old mattress someone had ditched.
Vacancy, mattress, probably from that same spot. And also,
it was in an alleyway on the ground.
Yeah.
I was just like, okay, well, I'm going to go and you need to get rid of that mattress immediately. He didn't try to stop me. I took the longest shower when I got home and never spoke to Jake again, other than awkwardly saying hi if we saw each other in the parking lot. Probably one of the most disgusting moments of my entire life. I would feel personally never clean again if I knew that I was on something that was full of cockroaches.
oh, I would find a way to get things smelled for me.
Our next story is from Julia. It's what's something most people don't know about you from the original deck. I slept with a male escort after a long celibacy streak.
Go big or go home.
Yeah, I married my high school sweetheart and he and I were together for almost 30 years. I lost him to cancer a few years ago and it broke my heart. I could not imagine ever loving someone else again. I met some women through a young widow support group, which was a real port in the storm. I was only in my mid-40s when my husband passed. The other widows understood everything I was going through and were a great support system. I became close with Annette, who was a few years older than me, and about 6 months ahead of me in terms of the grief process. We started spending a lot of time together and talked about everything, including the prospect of endless celibacy in our future. I told her I didn't want to date again, but also hated the idea of closing up shop at 45. she felt the same. I feel like also okay, I don't want to be insensitive, but I feel like in that moment you're like, oh, I'll never love someone again, but you're still young.
Yeah, man.
Might happen in the future. I'm not
the
saying you have
world
to,
is a big
but...
place. We have billions of people, you know.
One day, Annette came over looking positively glowing and was the least depressed I'd seen her since we met. I was like, what's up with you? And she goes, so don't hate me, but I finally got laid and it was very much needed. I burst out laughing and she told me about how another widow she is friends with introduced her to a male escort and she finally broke down and hired him and it was the best time ever. You should call him, she said. I kind of love the idea of this dude just like being within the grief support network.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that's his specialty.
He's just the widow
whisperer. I was like, nah, I can't. But she just said, I'm texting you Alex's number. Call him when you're ready. You won't regret it. I didn't do anything with his contact info for a few months, but one night I was feeling so excruciatingly lonely and depressed. So I sent him a text saying, my friend Annette gave me your number. Are you still available? Alex replied that he was and invited me to meet him for a drink at a bar nearby. I spotted him straight away and he was extremely good looking. Tall, very fit, probably early 30s, radiant, brain-scrambling smile. I sipped a glass of wine and we talked. He explained his rates, not cheap, and told me a little about how he ended up doing this work. I feel like you want to go with somebody who's expensive.
Yeah, yeah. Like, you know, I think if you're paying for quality here, and if you have also, you know, referrals, word of mouth from these women, I would be like, yeah, it's clearly worth it.
Right. He'd been a dancer, felt he had a calling to be more in a companion role, and had a friend who was doing this work who introduced him to his first clients. He was so warm, charming, and easy to talk to. I could see why Annette recommended him. After I finished my second glass of wine, I was like, okay, let's do this before I change my mind. He laughed. I settled up and we went back to my house. We went inside and I asked, how does this work? Do we just get naked? I feel like this would be the most awkward part. I'd be like, so...
Yeah. So what we're going to start is... Yeah.
He smiled and said, it works however you want. Do you want to get naked? I said no. He said, so tell me what you want. God, I would be terrible at this. I'd be like, I don't know. You tell me. I don't know what I want. I stared at him blankly. I was so nervous, I couldn't think of anything. He continued, what do you think about when you're alone? Like, what are your fantasies? I must have turned the brightest shade of red and told him, I can't tell you about that. He said, I'm the perfect person to tell. I won't tell anyone else. Nothing you say can possibly shock me. And I really want to know. I feel like this, I won't tell anyone else. I'm like, this is not like patient-client confidentiality.
Yeah,
he can definitely tell other people.
Yeah, we're not signing an NDA here or anything like that.
Yeah, maybe he should. But that's nice of him to say that he won't tell anyone. We were on the couch in the living room. He was holding my hand and smiling flirtatiously. I don't even know what I was feeling. Overwhelmed, I guess. He asked me if I wanted him to kiss me. I said okay, and he did. He was an amazing kisser, of course. We made out for a bit on the couch, and he kept asking me questions. Can I play with your hair? Can I unhook your bra? My 20-year-old daughter has this t-shirt saying that consent is sexy, and it was the first time in my life that slogan really clicked. The way he was talking was sexy and so different than how things were with my husband. Not to suggest I was at all dissatisfied with my husband. This was just different. I was actually glad it was different. I didn't want it to remind me of my decades-long relationship that I miss so horribly. Between my husband's illness and then death, it had been a couple years since I'd had sex, and I didn't realize how much I was missing it until I had Alex kissing my neck and whispering in my ear that he would love to take me to bed. I couldn't stand the idea of taking him to my bed, so I took him to the guest room and he kept asking me things. Do you want me to take your shirt off? Do you like when I pull your hair? The more he said, the more it turned me on. We had sex twice that night, and I felt like a teenager again. I thanked him for a great time when we were done, and then excitedly texted Annette once he left and told her what I'd been up to. She asked how I felt about it. I said, physically amazing and emotionally like I cheated on my husband. She said she'd felt that way too, but also reminded me that our husbands hadn't wanted us to be alone forever and that they'd probably be glad we found some source of fun without them. I know she was right. I agree with that. And also, like, they don't know.
And, they could be looking down on you, but it's like...
Yeah, but let's be real.
Yeah.
They're not. I hired Alex a few more times over the last couple years. I haven't felt like getting into a relationship again, but having him as an option has been nice. He's not inexpensive, but still worth every penny. I never thought I'd be a woman who hires a man for sex, and haven't even told anyone but my widow friends, because I know they're the few people in my life who would understand it.
I can't imagine maybe some people will be judgmental, but I can't imagine other people will be like, oh, I can't even acknowledge you for sleeping with another man.
I don't think that's it. It's the escort part. People are weird about that.
Yeah.
People get weird about sex work, even though it is real work.
He's a healer.
Our next story is from Adam. What's the coolest thing you've ever done? From our original deck. I lost my virginity in a threesome in Paris. Okay.
Paris, huh?
I'm a gay guy from a small town in Kansas and was raised by religious conservative parents. I knew I was gay, but wasn't out to very many people. My senior year of high school, I persuaded my parents to let me go on a senior trip with my French class for spring break. My best friend at the time, Clarissa, was also going, and I was excited for us to be on the loose in a foreign city away from our parents. Clarissa knew I was gay and was already researching all the gay bars and clubs online that we could visit while on our trip. During the day, our French teacher dragged us around to tourist spots and historic sites, but she retired for the night by around 8 p.m., so Clarissa and I could sneak off to explore the city on our own. We went to bars and clubs to practice our French and get drunk since we were both 18, the legal drinking age there. I really wanted to hook up with a guy, but the first couple of nights out, I was too nervous to even talk to anyone, so I just sipped drinks at the bar with Clarissa. On our last night in town, we went to this really busy gay club and drank a bunch of vodka sodas and hit the dance floor. Two hot guys started dancing with me, and I was thrilled. As we were dancing, they kept getting closer, and eventually one of them started kissing me. I thought the guy behind me would leave, but he joined in, also kissing my neck and grinding against me. The guy behind me whispered something in my ear, but it was so loud and it was in French, so I didn't totally understand.
Oh, it's so hot.
Voulez-vous coucher avec moi ce soir?
He's like, fromage. It's like, what? He's like, he likes the cheese.
I turned and asked him to repeat, but he could tell from my accent that I'm American and said, American? I said, yeah. He said, I asked if you want to come home with me and my boyfriend. I had just kissed a man for the first time, and now they wanted me to come home with them. I explained that I was with my friend, and we'd probably need to walk her back to our hotel first, but after that, I would come home with them. I found Clarissa, and she was making out with a woman. I was like, what's going on? You're not even gay. She said, she's 18. Give her time.
Also, it's Paris. There's love in the air.
She said, yeah, but I wanted to try it. Who knows when my next chance to make out with a woman in Paris will come along. I asked her if she was going to her, and she said, I don't know, maybe. Are you going to those guys you were dancing with? I said, actually, they asked me to go home with them, but I want us to walk you back to the hotel first. She said no, she was having a good time and could walk herself back. That sounds dangerous, but hopefully this lady will take care of her. We were in a busy part of town and there were plenty of people out, so she'd probably be okay on her own. We agreed to share our locations on our phone just in case and said goodnight. The couple's apartment was only a 10-minute walk away from the club, and as soon as we got there, it was on. Clothes were coming off, condoms were coming out. I felt like a bit of a dork, not having any experience and not really knowing what I was doing, but my dates thought all of this was adorable and were happy to show me what to do. I learned lots of new slang that definitely wouldn't be covered in a high school French class, and I got to try almost everything I'd seen in porn that night. Ménage à toi. Ménage à toi. I felt like a total stud by the time I left, sneaking back to the hotel a couple of hours before sunrise. Clarissa and I were both miserably tired and hungover the next day, but it was totally worth it. I regaled her with my threesome story, and she told me about her hookup with the woman from the club. She had decided she was about 99% hetero, but still had a good time trying out being with a woman. We felt very grown up and pleased with having gotten away with our wild night that would have given our parents heart attacks if they ever found out.
You actually send him this video and you say,
this is what happened.
thank you for funding my sexual excursion.
Our final story is from Anonymous. And it's what's your not my proudest moment story from our venting deck. I threw up everywhere and she still made out with me. Ending on another gross note. On a Saturday morning in early December, my roommate Scott kicked in my bedroom door and told me to get dressed in red because we were going to SantaCon. Like in a movie? Like a karate? What were these doors?
Get out there. We're going to SantaCon.
Not only had I never heard of SantaCon, a massive bar crawl where everyone dresses as Santa, but I was also nursing a brutal hangover from the night before. Scott said we were starting at his coworker's apartment in North Beach for brunch. Pancakes, bacon, eggs, mimosas, the works. I was fresh out of college, so free food and drinks were an easy way to get me on board. But when we got there, everything went downhill.
Damn it.
Scott had promised brunch, but when we walked in, there was nothing to eat. You can't promise brunch and then have nothing there. Apparently, his coworker had decided that week to go vegan, gluten-free, and on some ridiculous juice cleanse. But of course, mimosas were still fine. I mean, yeah, there's juice in them. At this point, I had a mimosa in one hand, no food in my stomach, and a tech bro pouring tequila shots while blasting Shots by LMFAO. Then I hear, down your drinks, bitches, we're leaving for SantaCon. I look at Scott in agony, and he says, don't worry, we'll grab something on the way. Spoiler alert, we did not.
Scott sucks.
We both lived in San Francisco, so we're both familiar with SantaCon, and it's a messy time if you've never...
It is a show.
Yeah, one SantaCon I found a Santa costume in the trash can, and I put it on.
Boom! Different than a mattress.
Than a mattress. I would never do that.
Yeah.
And also, I was stupid. So keep that in mind. SantaCon was a sea of red and white with some of the wildest outfits imaginable. Some people were even completely naked, just wearing red paint. Or like a Santa hat sock.
Yeah.
Gotta have that. Gotta have one of those.
Or just like a Rudolph nose, but then the rest is naked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a time. Naturally, every bar was packed, making it impossible to get a drink, let alone go inside. So Scott runs into a crowded liquor store and comes out with a bottle of gin and Four Loko. Thanks to the magic of peer pressure, I found myself taking shots of warm gin and sipping Four Loko in the middle of Polk Street, surrounded by a crowd of other intoxicated 20-somethings. This went on for another 3 hours, and I still hadn't eaten a thing. Go buy yourself a bag of chips. Go to a corner store. But along the way, I met a woman at a bar and we hit it off. After a bit of a drunken makeout session, she invited me back to her apartment. Hopefully, she has food at her apartment. At her place, she made us more drinks, but they weren't sitting well with my stomach because she needs to make you a pizza.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, I hadn't eaten since the night before, so I had to use all my willpower to not throw up. The next thing I knew, we were kissing, heading to her bedroom, and our clothes were off. That's when my stomach had other plans. I jumped up from the bed, told her I'd be right back, and stumbled drunkenly into the bathroom.
I don't like where this is going.
I desperately chugged water from the faucet, trying to sober up. It's long past that. There's no hope. You need food. But my mouth was uncontrollably salivating. That's the worst feeling when you know it's about to happen. Yeah. And then it happened. I was like a geyser. I threw up every ounce of alcohol from the day into the toilet. After cleaning up what I could, I ran out of the bathroom. At least it sounds like it was maybe not projectile everywhere. Yeah. Maybe. But also, you didn't have to clean up.
Good thing there wasn't like food in there.
No, but if there was food in there, then it wouldn't have happened. Maybe. I don't know.
Well, yeah. We don't know how. I mean, this. Oh, God. Ugh.
She asked if I was okay, and I mumbled something about a family emergency, grabbed my clothes, and headed towards the door. She said, wait, got up, then pushed me against the wall to make out with me.
I hope he washed his mouth out. Like, Oh, God.
This lasted for about a minute before I finally left. I stumbled down the outside stairs, no shirt on, jeans halfway up, and both shoes in hand before puking all over her neighbor's potted flowers. Those flowers died. We ended up dating for about a month after that. And then broke up. I have questions about this woman's she was like, that was not a red flag. I wasn't. Maybe she doesn't have a sense of taste.
Ooh, maybe she was like, this is not as bad as the other dudes I've been with.
Honestly, I think she needs to hook up with Cockroach Boy.
Oh.
I think they're meant to be together.
And they could make a nice little trash baby.
Yeah, they're going to make a little garbage baby. All right, well, those were all terrible. Actually, no, the Escort was great. Actually, also the funeral one.
Yeah.
There's a couple good ones in there.
I think those are like ways to heal through sex.
Yes.
Sexual
sex can
healing.
heal, or it can be disgusting. So the only two ways it can be.
Nope.
That is it for Delve Deck Stories. If you liked this episode, you can like, comment, subscribe, and check out some of our other videos. And if you have a crazy story you would like to share with us, you can go to share.delvedeck.com and maybe we'll read it on an episode.